Enter. Ooh, sneak peek of what you're about to see. All right, we are good to go. So, title of talk today, Decentralized Authentication is our only hope. I truly believe this as a society, that if we keep going the path we're going with certificate authorities and kind of centralized trust models, that eventually tragedy is going to happen. So the talk today, I'm going to go through my entire career of where I came to this conclusion and what I'm doing about it. So the problem that first hit me in the face, I guess in 2008 when I was in grad school, and like, hey, what do I want to research? What's a good thing to do if I'm going to change the world, is that authentication sucks. Passwords were hell. Everyone was getting hacked. Like I started my career as a hacker like a teenager, and it was like you win all the time. And I just learned from this like addiction book I'm reading that if you win all the time, it actually loses its like excitement. So I think maybe that's part of the reason I got into this, that like you actually need to almost win sometimes. So agenda for today, we're going to go through a little bit of history of authentication. I won't bore you too much, but I want to at least like kind of show you where we started and where we're at. We'll do decentralized authentication, single device authentication, which is what I studied in grad school and most of my career. And then we'll do decentralized recovery, a really hard problem. I'll tell you about Authenticate, and then ultimately I'm going to tell you how we're going to save the world. So I'm Chad. My career started back in 2000, I guess. I was a site tech and a pre-check founder in the scene, if anyone is familiar with like the old IRC wares scene. That's how I cut my teeth in computer science. The only reason I thought these things were valuable was to steal movies and games. I don't know if my opinion on that has changed much, but I do find more value in them than I once did. I got into playing CTFs. I started to get a PhD and I dropped out, and then I went back and actually got a PhD. So if you really want to make me feel weird, you can call me Dr. Spensky. Nobody does, but it's legally allowed. I have the paperwork. And then I worked at MIT Lincoln Laboratory, where I was actually a professional hacker for the DoD. We did offensive research, in particular for DoD caliber problems. And that's where they kind of like got in my brain thinking like bigger problems, like, okay, national security problems. If you were going to destroy the United States, how would you do it? And then how would you defend it? So this is where a lot of this decentralized thought really started to like hit home with me. I'm like, yeah, we could crumple our entire society. So I am qualified to give this talk. As Razib was alluding to, I've released a lot of open source tools. If you want to hack smart cards, you want to fuzz NFC, you want to make glitch-resistant software, you want embedded systems that even if you root the system, you cannot turn GPIO pins on and off. We also discovered a vulnerability on every Android phone on Earth where you could pass a pointer into trust zone and read and write all of kernel memory. I've published a couple papers and like peer-reviewed conferences, one on privacy on mobile devices, access control misconfigurations. We also fuzzed all the trusted execution environment apps on modern Android phones, and we filed a couple patents along the way because we decided to go commercialize this stuff. So let's get to authentication. The early days, the only reason you needed a password is because you had these humongous clunky computers and you didn't want just anybody having access to them. So really quick fix, hey, we'll put a password, only people with the password can log in. So putting that in perspective, this was 1961. First password was invented. Then the internet started to emerge in the 80s. Then we had the World Wide Web. Then we had personal computers. Google came out around 1998. The iPhone was released 2007. 2010, IoT devices take over the world. Today, we're still standing here with the thing that was invented in 1961 still as the #1 security feature that people are using. Right? We're starting to get better things, but this is kind of, to put in perspective, the fact the password has survived is shocking. There's a lot of really cool research. There's, a lot of really good like academic studies on why it survived. So why they suck, we'll just highlight it really quick. The idea of a symmetric secret is the problem with passwords. It's nothing inherently wrong with the scheme, the security. Forget about all the hashing and salting and database leaks, irrelevant. The real problem is that you have a secret and the server has a secret, and that secret must be known by both parties, and you must pass that secret around. I must enter that secret, in this case, with my meat mitts here, into my computer. So that secret is going to leave my brain, and it's going to enter, like the secret is now out in the world in another medium. That's the real problem with passwords. So you can either hack the brain, you can observe people typing it, you can hack the computer that it was entered into, you could compromise the encryption going through, you could compromise it. Like, there's so many places where this secret is just being spread around. And what we've been doing is just band-aiding these symptoms, right? We're just throwing band-aids on there to, okay, we're gonna patch the, when you type it in, so we can have encrypted keyboards and stuff like that, right? We can patch that you don't have to store the secret on the database. We're gonna put it in a hash thing. We're gonna salt the hash to make brute force harder. Irrelevant, though. That's not the core problem. The core problem is you have a shared secret. So passwords, MFA, 2FA, all of that is dead, in my opinion. So if video killed the radio star, phishing killed the password star. Because once phishing got to the point where it is now, you throw any security you want at it, and it is irrelevant, because I'm gonna have the person just literally type it in to me. So whatever you do doesn't matter, because I'm just going to get them to blurt the whole secret out. You can be 50 characters, uppercase, lowercase, whatever. I trick the human, boom, secret leaves their brain. Now it's in my database. So just highlight really quickly how easy this is. You can go to this Evil Engine X GitHub repo. You could pull that repo, get yourself like a $20 DigitalOcean account, and set up like a really advanced phishing campaign on any site on Earth. And it will even phish your 2FA codes and things like that. And the problem there, which you can see depicted in this diagram, is that, okay, I'm going to enter the password in this computer, it goes to this website, it checks the password, it sends me a code, and then I enter that code into the same vulnerable place that I just entered the vulnerable password. Like, once your UI is going through a web browser, the fact that the page changed doesn't make that less vulnerable. That's still where the attacker is going to target. So if you're right there where Evil Engine X sits, you can still use a password, OTP code, whatever you have them type in. They can take a picture of themselves. It doesn't matter, because you're just going to steal all their credentials. And in the limit with that, you can actually not even sit there, but you could run a VM in the middle where you're interacting with the actual website, but on my VM. So then when you log in, I'm logged in and you're not logged in. So the other one is that MFA fatigue. So what will happen now if you have like Duo-like apps? You could be anywhere in the world. You could be in Aruba. Someone fished your username and password, or somewhere logged in, and you get a prompt. Because there's no proximity binding there, they can just keep doing that until you eventually say yes. I think this is how a lot of Twitter accounts and stuff got hacked. I think Barack Obama's or someone, one of like the really high-profile accounts, got hacked, something like this. So we can do better, right? There's a lot of really smart computer scientists on Earth, and we shouldn't be taking these haphazard, half-assed solutions in stride. So in 1983, something really cool happened in the world of cryptography. We started using asymmetric secrets. So this is Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman, who created RSA, one of the most popular, widely used asymmetric schemes on Earth. And the novelty here, which was really cool, is that your private key never leaves. So the problem with passwords, we're passing these secrets all around, we have to enter them in. But in this case, Alice, who looks really intense, so this is my first time using AI-generated images, so this talk is just going to be absolutely lit, because the imagery is great. So Alice will never give up her private key, but she can give Bob her public key. And then once they do that, you can use the private key for decryption. So if Bob wants to send me something securely, he can encrypt it with my public key. I can decrypt it. And for the point of authentication, with my private key, I can sign things to prove that I am me. And you can verify them with my public key. This was a game changer. This enabled e-commerce. Without asymmetric encryption, you could still have e-commerce, but it would be far, far more Wild Westy, and I don't think I would be participating. So finally, we have this public key panacea. Secrets aren't being spread all over the internet. Ta-da, we did it. As a society, we've advanced. This was in 1983, mind you. Nothing has seemingly changed in our worlds, unfortunately. There are systems that use asymmetric keys today. So these are like the early adopting systems. So smart cards use asymmetric keys, all the USB hardware tokens, TLS client certs. This has existed forever in the TLS spec. I don't know why it was not more widely adopted. Like, I know at MIT we did use this. You'd put your private key on your laptop and you'd use that to log in and set passwords, SSH keys, and most recently FIDO pass keys. These are TSL client-side cert round 2, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. But there be dragons with asymmetric keys, right? The early adoption of these, the usability was terrible, the scalability was terrible, and recovery was non-existent, right? I give you a smart card, That smart card would log you into one thing, for example. You can actually install applets on the smart card. The most popular operating system on Earth is Java OS that runs on every SIM card and every smart card on Earth. They will never let you run applets because the internal segregation is terrible, so everyone will lock it down. That's why you have multiple credit cards. In theory, you could have all of your credit cards on one physical card, but there's like political and somewhat security reasons they won't do that. So if we're really gonna go the smart card route, you'd end up having a smart card for every single website on Earth, and it'd get crazy. And then when you lose your credit card, it's a nightmare, right? Or you lose your YubiKey, the recovery has always been this kind of looming problem of like, what do we do? And since they're dragons, I don't know if it's scalability or scaleability, but either way, it's relevant. So it all comes down to trust, right? And this is what we're talking about, like centralized versus decentralized trust. So we decided collectively, not me included in this conversation, but society has decided that we're gonna do a centralized certificate authority trust model. So back in the day, there were only a handful. Everyone decided that was a bad idea. We don't want all of the trust with 5 people, so we need more CAs. And now we have a lot of CAs. So when you go in your browser, if you're using Chrome, you have 134 root CAs, 168. These change, so these are rough numbers, but at the time I made the slides, they were accurate. In Microsoft, you have 283 root CAs. But why do you trust them? Just because the software vendor decided to trust them? But you don't know anything about these CAs. I doubt anybody could list off all 134 that they trust in their browser. And how bad could it be, right? So I really like this quote. If you trust a person, or in this case a CA, you either have a friend or you have a life lesson. And how do you know if they're compromised? You don't, right? If the private key is in someone else's possession, you have no clue. So the hard questions that are unanswerable, how many CAs are currently compromised? How would you know? And what would you do if you knew? Like, what could you possibly do? If you knew that VeriSign right now was leaked, how do we even recover from that? Because you don't know how long they've been leaked, you don't know how much damage has been done. And Carl Sagan said the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So just because we don't know doesn't mean it's not happening. And in fact, it did happen. I'm gonna come back to the sidebar, I put that in the wrong order. DigiNotar actually got compromised back in 2011. So this was one of the root signing CAs, and they were man-in-the-middling a lot of Iranians. So to this day, we don't know how much damage or lives were lost or whatever, but like this is not a hypothetical doomsday scenario. It actually happened, and I was working at Lincoln Laboratory when this went down, so it was like, you know, from a government perspective, this was a real eye-opener that we can't keep doing this. So Kim Kardashian tried to break the internet with some scandalous photos, but if you compromise a CA and you have a way to hijack DNS, you just have some router exploit that works on, you know, most TP-Link routers, it's game over. You do whatever you want. You point anyone to any website, phishing, whatever, it's done. Like, you win, internet is yours, congratulations. Sidebar, we now place so much trust on DNS. The point of DNS was supposed to be to help humans map names to octets, right? We're not good at memorizing, you know, 8-bit numbers that are with dots in between, but we're really good at memorizing names, like Authenticate.com, you know? But because of the way we've kind of adopted this whole architecture, even in FIDO, which is a new scheme, it is tied to the DNS entry. Your private key and your public key are gonna be bound by this DNS entry. And that DNSSEC is not gonna happen. I think at this point, we've all given up on it, but it's just strange how the trust models, right? The creators of DNS never said this to me, the root of trust on the internet, but now it is. And somehow we just accept that. So hopefully everyone's convinced at this point, centralization is not it. We're not gonna get there doing this. So let's talk about how we can decentralize authentication in particular in this. I'm not gonna go into anything else other than authentication. And just to summarize the difference, so this snow leopard here is a centralized organism, right? It is one thing, if you kill that, the snow leopard is dead, versus a swarm of bees that have this insane resiliency. If you've ever gone head-to-head with a swarm of bees, no matter how many bees you kill, it doesn't matter because the swarm will survive, right? And that kind of mentality as a digital species is really powerful. That if we have this CA that when you chop the head off, all of our trust falls over, versus we're all a swarm of bees out there, and a couple might get hacked, a couple might get compromised, lose their phones, But as long as the majority of the swarm is alive, we can survive online. Distributed does not equal decentralized. I actually have to go back to this many times myself and be like, okay, what's the difference again? So distributed system is when you take a single task and you break it over many computers, right? So okay, I'm gonna compile a program that's one task and I'm gonna do it over multiple processes. So I'm distributing that load, or I'm gonna put it in a Hadoop cluster. A decentralized system is the fact that every single entity is independent. So it's not, there aren't one global thing that's dictating the tasks out to worker bees. It's everybody is exactly the same and has the same capabilities to operate in this independent, decentralized nature. So the original internet, in my opinion, was decentralized. So you had your Usenet, your BBSs, your IRC chats, all of this, on IRC, you could have multiple servers that are still the same server, but if one server drops, it's okay, you could reconnect to the next server and still be on the same entity. The original thoughts of the internet were mostly decentralized thoughts. Most of the people on the early internet saw this as a way that, okay, there's more freedom to the people, this will democratize technology, and it all ended up getting lumped up in the end. So if we look at authentication protocols on the internet, so we'll say 1983 the internet began, we actually had X509 certs come out pretty soon after that, so that's what you're using for TLS and things today. Those are gonna be your X509 certs. PGP came out in 1991, which was a fully decentralized model, and we'll get to that in a second. We got TLS, so we finally got HTTPS. And then SAML came out in 2002, which let us do single sign-on, which in my opinion actually put us back in the wrong direction. Things were going well, so now what SAML does is it aggregates all of your sign-ons through one identity provider. So when you see login with Google, that's actually OpenID Connect, but it's the same kind of thought process. And then we had OpenID Connect and FIDO U2F. And then FIDO was developed in 2015. It still hasn't quite happened yet, but you can use a FIDO passkey to log into things, and I will show you how to do that in the demo. And then we have verifiables, credentials, and WebAuthn. So verifiable credentials really are looking at truly being decentralized. Can I have my driver's license on my phone? Can I prove to you that I live in Texas, but I don't give you my age or eye color? So that one's actually quite interesting. And here we are today. We're still using passwords. But there's been a lot of interesting things that have been developed. And I really think that tomorrow we will have decentralized and self-sovereign identity. I think we can get there, but there's still tons of hard work in the mix. So I want to go back to PGP. This has kind of been my North Star research-wise. I've actually since become friends with John Callis and Phil Zimmerman, who created PGP, and kind of asked them what went wrong? Because this seemed like a really, really good idea, and why did it never catch on? So the idea with PGP was really email encryption, but they had a really interesting trust model around that. So public keys would be bound to emails, and private keys were used for signing and encryption. The one small problem, which turned out to be the problem, was there was a seminal paper about it called Why Johnny Can't Encrypt, a usability evaluation of PGP. Phil seems to agree 100% that the cognitive burden, as he phrases it, with PGP was far too high. It was too complicated to use. So if this were a PGP key signing party, we would all stand up one at a time and read out our hash of our public key, and everyone else would verify that and then sign our key in return, right? That is a lot. That's a lot to ask of people, and it did not scale well, the web of trust, and how to introduce a new trusted key into the system. The most interesting thing they did was called the web of trust. So rather than having all of these CAs that you trust, everybody can trust whomever they want, and they had a really intricate web. So what would happen here? Say I go to google.com, and it's my first time ever visiting google.com. I don't know google.com, but my web actually knows google.com, and because people I trust google.com, I now know I can trust google.com. And you can kind of see the idea here that you have both direct trust, so Ava is friends with Manuel, but you also have indirect trust. So Ingo is friends with Ava, trusts Ava, but doesn't trust Manuel, but has an indirect trust relationship because you trust someone who trusts them. And you could build this really strong, resilient kind of beehive mentality of trust relationships. So the ideas were fascinating. As an academic, I was so hooked on this. Still, the fact that I've even talked to Phil Zimmerman once on the phone, like, I get like giddy. I'm like, I'm a huge fan of yours. Like, because it was such a cool idea, and it really could solve a lot of the problems and compromises that we see today. So this is what authentication looks like today. This is a typical corporate login, or when you click login with anything, right? Login with Google, login with Facebook. You're gonna type in your username, your password, your OTP code. It's gonna, I'll just walk it through. Oh wait, you can't hear me. I'll point and walk it through. So you type in your username and password to the website, OTP codes, whatever. They're gonna then send you a redirect. Your redirect then goes out to a third-party identity provider. So this would be, Google, Authenticate, Okta, Ping, whatever you're using. That third-party identity provider might send you another code. You type that into them. Ultimately, they make the yes/no decision. They pass a token back to your web browser. Your web browser then redirects back and passes that token. So there's a lot of HTTP redirects and things happening in this process. The problem is it's just vulnerabilities everywhere, right? Like we still have the observation vulnerability. If I'm key logging or anything on the computer you're using, I could have malware on that computer that can intercept everything in the middle. I can phish you. I can man in the middle your IDP, not even necessarily the thing you're logging into, but if it redirects you to me, I win as well. I could compromise the IDP, which has nothing to do with the service you're logging into, which is also interesting. So say I make the most secure website on earth, but you click login with Google and Google gets popped. Now I get popped. And then there's session hijacking, which is a whole nother issue. So what happens now when you log in, I hand you a random string, and as long as you present that string, you're good to go. So you can literally take that string. It used to be much easier. I could take that string, put it on my laptop, go to Houston, and log in as you. They now will kind of tie them to IPs and things. Very circumventable, though. The idea that you being logged into your bank account is a text string stored in a cookie session header in your HTTP request in 2025, to me, is still like not okay, right? So it's like, okay, getting in the door is so super hard, but once you get in, here's a magic token. Don't lose that token, because then you're screwed. It's like, then what was the point of all the other stuff, right? And hackers are only going to go wherever it's easiest. So right now, phishing is really easy. Phishing becomes hard. You're just going to you're just going to session hijack. It's a little bit harder, right? But it's not impossible. So in my opinion, I think we're one IDP hack away from absolute catastrophe. I mean, Okta was very close, like this close to actually getting a fully compromised. So I think it was just their customer service portal. So Okta is the biggest IDP in the US. I don't know about the world. So every corporate login that you do, you click, it redirects you to Okta and will redirect you back. If the attackers would have had one more pivot and actually got what they wanted, they could have logged into pretty much any corporation in the US and done whatever they wanted as whomever they wanted. So this is actually the world record for Jenga stacking. He did 1,843 blocks. And my point is, this is what our security infrastructure on the internet looks like today. These are all of the websites that you can sign up with Dropbox, Facebook, Google, whatever. If any one of those IDPs falls, they're that one little block at the bottom, and the security for every company that uses them is gone as well. So let's jump into some research. So as a wide-eyed, really excited young researcher that was like, I'm going to change the world, I got obsessed with the idea called single device authentication. I was like, we could use one device for everything. To put this in context, my advisor came from Carnegie Mellon, and they had Nokia phones that did proof-carrying authentication and scanned QR codes to open doors and log into computers, but that was never really finished. So I'm like, Mike, this is it. Like, this is grad school. This is why I came here. This is amazing. We're going to use phones. We're going to log into everything. So the idea is you have one phone, you put all your keys on the phone, and use that phone for everything. The general goals, kind of the opposite of everything we've just seen that's actually happening. So we're going to use secure private keys. We're going to use asymmetric keys. There's going to be a hardware token, so there's going to be a something you have attached to this, not just a something you know. We could use physically unclonable functions. We can use secure elements. We can use trust zone. There's a lot of like really beautiful things at the hardware level that give you security that's just unprecedented. We have to decentralize trust to mitigate these doomsday scenarios, eliminate credential theft, and eliminate session hijacking. These were like our high-level research goals to save the world. Fortunately for enough, there is actually a framework for getting rid of the password. So John Bonet and a bunch of other researchers, they have this paper they published, The Quest to Replace the Password. So they came up with this table. So this table was the first thing we did in our research, was to figure out, one, is it possible to get a perfect score? Like, if this is truly what they think, and we kind of like, read a ton of papers, this framework was very nice. Like, one, can we get a perfect score? You can see our research on the right that we called single device authentication. In fact, we were able to get a perfect score in security, assurance, features, and usability. So the middle circle means that it is partially done. Since then, the nothing to carry, we count it as partially because you already carry your phone. You could embed this in your hand and stuff if you go kind of crazy with it. But once we answered this question and realized we could get a perfect score, we were motivated to actually build it. We actually built prototypes with the biggest emphasis on usability. Like, if this is not the most usable system on Earth, we're going to go the ways of PGP. So we ultimately did a bunch of user studies. Bluetooth Low Energy seemed like the best use case. We tried USB, we tried NFC tap, tried a bunch of different things. We haven't implemented this yet, but in the limit, you could do machine learning to auto-approve requests as well. So I wake up in the same house every day, I go to the same gym, I drive the same GPS route, I show up at the same office with the same RF signals around me, and I log in, roughly between 7:30 and 8 a.m. every day. So if that pattern exists and my authentication is 99.9% sure it's Chad, bang, you could actually go right in without anything, without compromising security. So this is the stuff we were looking at in our research. This was like 15 years ago, and I've not stopped, I've not lifted my foot off the gas pedal since we got this score, since we realized this was possible and flew in ARM engineers and explored, trust zone and all that stuff. We got to do it. We got to at least try it, put it out there in the world and see what happens. So this is what authentication looks like with SDA. So I showed you before that you have all these IDPs and everything. The website could easily install their own plugin to say hey, whatever type of credential you want, we accept, a FIDO passkey, whatever. You're going to type in your username, and that's it. The website will then send a challenge that's encrypted that will go through your computer to the phone that only TrustZone can decrypt, that then, if needed, will present a challenge to the screen on your phone. And then and only then does your brain need to get involved, which would typically be a single pin for everything on Earth or a biometric. And then it sends an encrypted response, again, from TrustZone. So the OS, like iOS, Android, cannot read this. Everything on the computer cannot read this. You don't even need TLS, actually. You could remove TLS, and you would be fine. My goal was I wanted to do banking in a hotel lobby. I was like, if I could go to a hotel lobby and do banking securely, I'm confident. The only attacks that we left open was the physical compromising of a phone. So you'd have to come and physically get it and attack the secure element. There are some pretty insane, software chains that could compromise the hardware. I've been involved in some of those in my research. But realistically, you're down to physically stealing phones and compromising service providers. The problem with all of this would always come up, what if I lose my phone? That was the single greatest question we ever got. And we're I know there's research answers to this. But that's kind of like saying, the difference between theory and practice is everything. We're theoretically we could do it, right? So we had this idea forever. This is actually why we had a party here last week, 2 weeks ago, because we actually implemented this. It's in our product. To do fully decentralized recovery. So the way it's done today, if you use Google and you put a passkey or your passwords, they're going to back them up in their cloud, right? And you can do some end-to-end encrypted cool stuff, but it's not truly decentralized. Because if their cloud goes down and you go get a new phone and you can't talk to their cloud, it's kind of game over. And it's not stored with people you trust. So I call this human-centric recovery. So what's going to happen here is that Alice is going to have all of her private keys stored in her phone. And these are Alice's most trusted friends. I'm the cute girl second next to Carol, the buff dude. So AI has its own interpretations of what a Chad is, and that's what Chad is to Gemini. So she's going to encrypt all of her keys with an AES key, right? She'll take all the key stores, she'll use an AES key, she'll encrypt them, and now you have an encrypted blob. And then she's going to take a Shamir secret sharing scheme, and she's going to break those secrets into 5 shares. If you're not familiar with Shamir's secret sharing, he's the S in RSA. The coolest thing about this scheme is it's not a cryptographic scheme. It's not based on hardness assumptions. It's actually mathematically sound. So given infinite compute resources on Earth and 1 share, you can do absolutely nothing with it. So then what happens once she has these 5 shares, you can probably anticipate where this is going. She's going to give that encrypted blob and one of those shares each to her friends. And these shares will be encrypted with her friends' public keys. So she encrypts it with the public key, sends it to them, and now her backup is fully decentralized. There is no cloud needed with this. There is no service provider needed with this. As long as those phones can communicate and she ever needs to recover, 3 of her 5 friends can fully recover all of her secrets. So to recover your keys, somebody must first vouch. So say I get a new phone, it's going to show me an ID on my phone, and I just need to get in touch with one of my friends and have them vouch. Hey, this is actually Chad that's trying to launch this rescue mission, as we call it. So in this case, Dan, I read Dan the number, and he reads it out, 082379. He types it in, boom, rescue mission starts. So now, I guess that's not a transparent background, I just found that out. But now what's going to happen is that all her friends, their phones, now that no rescue mission is happening, are actually going to send a challenge to Alice's phone in the background, and then she will have to get on a video chat with them and answer that challenge. So they can challenge response any way you want, but first thing you'll get is a video. Hey, it's Chad, I did lose my phone, banana popsicle monkey, right? And then if they have any doubt, they can call me, they can do whatever out of band to verify it's me. 3 out of 5 shares. After they verify the video, 3 out of 5 shares, and all your keys are restored. And you didn't have to worry about having a safe at your house for a YubiKey. You didn't have to trust an iCloud provider. You know where your keys are at all times. They're in the pockets of the people you trust the most. So with all of this research kind of culminating, I had a choice to make 5 years ago to become a professor and stay in academia, just like shaking a stick at people, or actually literally put my money where my mouth is and go try to decentralize authentication. So started Authenticate 5 years ago with Rita, who was here 4 rows back. The technical goals that we wanted to accomplish here were that keys are stored on the end user's phones at all times. The keys never leave the phone. In our minds, the second the key leaves the phone, all security goes out the window. Because once it can be copied anywhere, you have no clue who has possession of it. As long as it's bound to the hardware, I know my keys are right here. My SSH key, my X519 certs, I know everything is physically here. Hardware enforced security whenever possible. So my PhD was in analyzing and securing embedded systems, so really, really low-level hardware security mechanisms like tagged memory architectures and things like that. Fully decentralized with no single point of failure and no single point of trust. And then this was kind of the biggest one that smart cards failed, that secrets could only be entered into trusted hardware. So you're still going to need a PIN or a biometric. At the end of the day, you're going to want something to protect those keys. With smart cards, you would you'd put your smart card into your computer, and then this very janky JavaScript-looking pop-up would pop up and ask you for your PIN. And at that point, you kind of lost control of this trust chain. So that was one of the things that we really emphasized, that you have to have secure input and output with the hardware device that holds the keys. And then the ability to authenticate all of the things, hence our name. We're like, we don't want this to just be like a web login. For it to really be valuable, I really do want like my car, my house, my Bitcoin wallets, my everything. Like, let's put them all in one piece of secure hardware that I know is like in hardware. So our just cause is that I think everyone deserves to be secure on the internet. I truly believe this. Like, there's no reason because my grandma sucks at technology that she deserves to have her bank account emptied. Like, it's not an adversarial game. As a CTF player, when you walk in the ring with me, now it's game on. We've agreed to a duel, right? Or in the case of like, if my neighbor sends a deauth packet at me, I think that's a declaration of war and it's on. But my grandma's not out there deauthing people. So our mission is to create secure cybersecurity products that are fun to use, and we want to respect user privacy and their basic right to use computers securely. So the cool thing with this key architecture is you can generate as many private keys as you want. So when you go to Facebook, you generate a new private key. You go to Instagram, you generate a new private key. And there's no possible way to link those. They're just random numbers. So we filed a patent at 2015, started the company in 2020, and we moved to Texas in 2022. So all of these products exist today. You can have your app, you can unlock doors, Windows computers, Linux computers, Apple computers. That was the sneak peek I showed you. One of the coolest features you get from this, in my opinion, is that our security architecture, my phone, it's decentralized, it's talking to my computer over Bluetooth. When my computer goes to a website to log in, that website will send the challenge to my computer, encrypted, that is then forwarded to my phone, that then responds and goes back. So I can actually have a security key log me in securely with a physical hardware token with my phone in my pocket. I don't have to get it out, I don't have to do anything. SSH key being on my phone, that was like a Saturday where I just came in and like, I need this, I'm sick of this IDRSA file, and I don't want my SSH key in the cloud. It was super easy for us to add that on because we're already secure key storage. So it's a Bluetooth-based app, so we actually put FIDO passkeys in there. So if you don't want to use iCloud and Google Drive, which I don't, you can actually put them in there and they'll be backed up physically on your phone and with your friends. Your SSH key, we added OTP codes because some people live in the past and we need to I have tons of websites that will still force me to use OTP codes. I'm like, I don't want the Google Authenticator app on my phone, so we put them in our app. There's a self-signed X509 cert. That's how we do all the decentralized authentication, and we do rescue missions. I don't know if we'll stick with X509 certs. I haven't seen a compelling reason yet to switch it to verifiable credentials or like a PGP key, since all we're really doing is the authentication portion. But we can change that in the future if needed. Works on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Works seamlessly with your SSH client. System-wide password lists. There's FIDO support where you're doing like BLE over USB effectively. We built our own hardware because we said we wanted to authenticate all the things. And one of the fun projects I roped my group into at MIT was breaking into buildings. We got really good at breaking into buildings. So before the Flipper Zero came out, we had all of those exploits like on our laptops. And it was kind of crazy. And we're like, we should fix this. And this could clearly be done in the way that we're logging into computers. We just put a little Linux embedded system on the door and actually use OpenSSL to authenticate to the door instead of some protocol called Weekend with some algorithm called #2 or something. It's like, we can use like ECC. This will be fine. So yeah, we went down the hellish path and we built and designed our own hardware. It's extremely slick and cool at this point, but when we're in the middle of building it, I've been far less positive about it. But you can put in a standard wall outlet and like augment any door with it. And then we have an admin portal because our target paying customers are businesses. So businesses actually want to know what's going on. What if I want to get a list of all of my employees' SSH public keys to add them to an authorized key file, or I want it to sync, or I want to know logs of who came in the door. So we built out a whole company around this. And my final slide, second to final slide, on saving the world. So this has kind of been my whole goal with computers. I feel like, as computer scientists, we have a really unique position in society right now that small groups of people can make huge changes. So our Save the World plan is to first secure all the small and mid-sized businesses. So there's this, they call it the security poverty line, where if your company doesn't make enough money to afford a full IT staff, you're kind of under this line where you're just kind of like playing it risky. And you're very likely to get ransomware because you don't have good security. And when you do get ransomware, you're 90% probability of dying. So like that, for me, again, my core belief that I think everyone deserves to be secure on the internet. If you're selling PVC pipe, you shouldn't have to learn cybersecurity. You should just be able to like log into your corporate account and like just go make PVC pipes for the people that need PVC pipes. So that's our first target. There's a lot of moral backing behind that. I think maybe more moral than business backing, but there's clearly a need and we're trying to service that. Then get all the enterprises because they're the ones with everybody's stuff and it'd be great if that didn't get leaked. We do give our product away for free for personal use, so that's secure every human on earth. I have ambitions to get this into e-voting. There's no reason I've seen in all my research that you couldn't vote for the president from your phone on election day. Just get up, cast your vote. It's signed securely with your private key. All the hardware, all the verifications have been done. And maybe we save democracy. And then embedded systems was my core focus in grad school because I just took a Waymo here, and that's a hackable thing. If any of you really wanted a cool, untraceable assassination of me, do it, because I'm going to keep taking Waymos because I don't have to have the awkward conversation. But you know, there's serious vulnerabilities there. Like, so that scares the heck out of me. And this is a little diagram of how this works on embedded systems. I kind of alluded to it earlier. So you would have our code running in the secure world, in the trusted execution environment on the phone. You would go to send a command, unencrypted, so developers don't have to know this is happening. You send a command to the firmware to, in this case, I think it says turn on a light, but you're going to twiddle a GPIO pin. It will actually, the assembly code will catch that. It will flip into the secure world. The code that's running in the normal world has no clue anything happened. The processor just freezes. We then generate a cryptographic request. We send it back over the same channel it came in on. The phone then in the secure world shows a prompt to the user. They approve it. It sends it back to all the way through. Then the code magically will continue running. It doesn't even know it ever got frozen. And if that authentication worked, the GPIO pin goes on. And if it didn't, it fails silently to the code. So you truly can like secure these Waymos and things like that. Like if you want to access the brakes, you can guarantee that, or like unlock a door, you can guarantee that only a phone with that private key embedded in it could do it. So it is possible. And since I come from the hacking world, you know, I'll know the slogan POC or GTFO. So I feel like, you know, demo or GTFO that this stuff works. So I already showed you how to like log in and log out of my computer. To show you I'm not bluffing, I will change this to, let's do a biometric to log into my computer. So I'm approving the change of the setting. And now when I lock my phone, I'm going to hit enter, biometric, ta-da. So the other awesomeness, I was planning on showing you this on a Linux computer because it is just better at all of this stuff, but I'll show you on a Mac. So my SSH key, like I said, is on my phone. So this key, and I'll show you in a second, I'll prove to you I'm not lying, is actually on my phone. Only if my phone's connected can you access this SSH private key. Same thing with Git. So if I go to like our repos, like I can only pull because this phone is nearby with that SSH key. Same with my Git signing key. All of that is on there. My favorite feature, don't know how many developers are here, probably more than one. You can do sudo without a password because the phone is nearby. So your development cycles just go really, really, really fast. And then the proximity login, which is, I think, my favorite feature on Earth. Come on, work with me, aerospace. So logging into AWS is probably one of the worst experiences I've ever had as far as logins go. We're going to proximity log into AWS. Let me log out first. So we're an IDP. This is not my ideal scenario. Ideally, we'd be a plugin, so we don't have to go out and become one of those Jenga pieces on the bottom. But that was us logging into AWS. And that only worked because my physical hardware token is here nearby, and I've already said I trust this computer and I trust this browser. So if I would try the same thing from an untrusted session, it's going to take me through the whole usual login process. So I'm going to go log into AWS, it redirects to an IDP, but I don't trust this browser, so it doesn't know my email. Or actually, I'll just use my username. And I have to scan a QR code to make sure that you're not MFA prompt bombing me and all that stuff to set up all the trust relationships. So this is the steps I have made at the Save the World mission that I'm on. GitLab is probably one of my most used ones every day. And now, to prove we're not bluffing, I'll do this quickly because I think the timeout is like 5 seconds. Bluetooth is off. I'll type sudo. you'll see that it failed. I'll do a git pull. It will fail. I'll type in my password so that I can continue showing you things. I will look at my SSH keys. It is not there. And again, if I go to re-log into AWS, all this stuff is gone. So we're getting close. Not saving the world hasn't happened yet, but the technology for it at least exists now. So thank you all so much for coming. It's a real pleasure to chat with you. And if you have questions, I'll be hanging around. Yes?
The bits of the private keys are on here.
Correct.
And the physical formers are stored in a flash cell. That flash device has a driver. You need to have the user enter a PIN or do biometric. Those UI things are pieces of code running on an operating system. So there's a lot of modules between the bits, and they seem like opportunities for phishing and man in the middle.
So you're referring to what's called a masquerade attack, I think?
Well, the point is that there's many layers of stuff that you guys didn't write, that you don't get to control.
So in the trusted world, like in the secure world, in the trusted execution environment, you can actually control all of that. So the way to think of this, think of it as two separate processors. There's actually your application processor, and then there's a secure processor. But what they do in TrustZone is they'll actually put them on the same die, and you're going to twiddle an NS bit. And that's going to change what page tables you're using is actually the main thing. But it also reconfigures your AXI bus. So there are certain peripherals that can only be accessed if the NS bit is on. So the correct way to do this is to implement everything in the secure world, included very, very limited drivers.
Including the UI code that asks you for your PIN or your
Correct.
biometric.
So if you've ever done like a DFU boot on your phone, on an Android phone, you know you can only like interact with it through the buttons, right? And that's because nobody has written touchscreen drivers that they're running in the secure world. So even you could embed your PIN as Morse code as a sequence of like up, down power button presses. And today that is very doable to do in the secure world. And even to display the data from the secure world is very doable. And what you do there is once you trap into the trust execution environment, and we'll say TrustZone, because they're all running TrustZone. Once you trap into TrustZone, you'd actually on the fly reconfigure your AXI bus to turn off your accelerometer, your microphone, all potential side channels while you're doing this trusted interaction. And the coolest part about this is that you could actually take a photograph with the camera on the phone from the secure world and guarantee that that image never shows unless you're in secure world. So you know like banks tried that thing where they show you like a record player or a dog or whatever? It doesn't do anything. In this case, it actually can because you can control the hardware. You know that that picture was taken. You take a picture of your dog. So if that picture is displayed and you're interacting with that world, you know your code is good and uncompromised.
I hope so.
It took me 15 years to convince myself that was true. And like I said...
And you're talking about, Google calls it the Titan chip or whatever they have. ICE are on part of Intel.
So it's actually never been deployed. Google had a thing they called Trusty. They kind of they promised that they were going to give this to us. NVIDIA was a huge proponent of this. So NVIDIA was actually the secret player behind ARM trusted firmware. I don't know if you ever looked at that GitHub repo, but that was like the way that you could actually run trusted firmware on... You could never do it on a phone. Like we even had connections at Qualcomm. We could never get a dev phone. Samsung, we did get a dev kit. They call theirs Trustonic, so it's the trusted operating system, and they will let you dev in that world. So for wherever, their CTO is no longer there, but John Geeter, like I sent him a message and he called me the next day and hooked me up with a dev kit. So forever, I kind of like have a soft place for for his company Trustonic and him as a CTO. I'm like that was very cool that you'd engage with researchers. So it can be done, and I wasn't sold until we flew ARM engineers in for a week and just peppered them with questions. We're like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Kind of the thoughts that are going through your head. The one thing that I think will screw us all as a society is the only people using it right now are using it for DRM. Like the biggest application for Trust Zone is DRM. So you're going to have all of your secure keys and secure interactions sitting next to Netflix's code that makes sure that you can only get 4K if you're on, like a Pixel whatever. So like those like political problems bother me, but as step one, if we just get people to use hardware keys, it's fantastic. Like even with our security model now where we can use the key stores and the open APIs that they do give us access to, we're already, 1000xing our security. But long term, with enough users, enough pressure, enough demand, technically it can totally be done.
Okay. So like, it looks like Authenticate works very closely with like working with like with the fact that like most people carry a phone and you use the phone as like your key to authenticate. I am one of those people that's actually trying to get away from using their phone for everything, and like split their computation into more devices. So like, I guess it's like I'm like trying to make my laptop more useful and that sort of thing. Like, what sort of plans do you have for like perhaps like either having more like being able to use a more dedicated device for authentication, or like being able to authenticate with a larger form factor like a laptop?
So we developed this when I was working with the DoD. So if you read anything we've ever written, we say smartphone-like device.
Okay.
The most important things about it are that it has all of these secure hardware capabilities and it has a trusted I/O interface. So something on device where that's where you're entering your PIN or whatever your like unlock secret is. I would say that is very far down the roadmap. Step one is just like get it to work on COTS devices. I mean, we do have, like my background is all embedded systems, so like I know how exactly to build one of these devices and even like the model numbers of chips I would use today if we were going to build one. But the one feature that lacks, that phones don't lack, is that you don't know when you lost it. Mm-hmm. Whereas with your phone, like, there's already like phone addiction, like recovery clinics and like what do they call it? Like the phantom ringing and stuff. Like we've become so attached to these things that's actually the greatest security feature that like 20 years ago, a cryptographer could never even dream of, that somebody would want to carry a hardware token and freak out if they didn't have it. Like I own some YubiKeys. I don't know where they're at right now, and I wouldn't know until I go to use them. But I know where my phone is because I have to carry it because society says I do. But from a security standpoint, that's amazing.
That's fair.
Hey there, how's it going? 2 questions. Can you use a Flipper 0 for authenticating with Authenticate?
Cannot.
Okay. And second question, how much data does Authenticate collect about the people who are using the system? So like if I'm unlocking my laptop, can Authenticate see that?
No. If you're a personal user, we have a kill switch in all of our code. If you register for personal, all we will know about you is what email is tied to what public key. And we have to know that because if I wanted to invite you to my office and and you give me your email, I can actually invite you to my office with that email and you could walk up with your app, connect over Bluetooth and unlock the door. So currently Authenticate is the public key store. For business customers, we also ask first name and last name, because otherwise the admin is going to go look at all of their employees and say like, okay, there's 25 variations of J Smith, and I don't know like which one is the one I'm supposed to be giving access to this server. But that is all we collect is public key and email, same as the PGP model.
Howdy. So, you mentioned that people were using client-side cookies in order to like maintain authentication in the site. Apologize if I missed this, but what do you have a solution to the client-side cookie problem?
Yes. So every action is authenticated in our case.
So it goes through the whole like Bluetooth thing, and you know.
Yes.
Okay.
And the way you can like really optimize this, oh, I guess I still have Bluetooth off. The way that you would optimize this if you don't want that round trip time, because it's like 200 milliseconds, but that's not, you know, if Google could drop their speeds by 200 milliseconds, they'd spend $20 billion to do it. So you can actually do a ticketing system where you always ticket one GET request forward, where every time you do a GET request, your phone could effectively sign the next request. So that but you couldn't session hijack, you could do one request, and any secure action, like individual actions will be authenticated, not the actual request. So here, you know, I'm logged in, but I'm not, say I go to Fire Me. What would happen when you go to Fire Me is that requires a biometric authentication. So even if you hijack my session cookie here, you can do nothing notable other than read. So with the ticketing system plus authenticating, and this is really easy for the developer, you just put a decorator on like whatever function and say, and actually in our case, we do it in the form of like, we throw exceptions. So in the code, you just say like, you know, this requires a biometric, and then the code handles everything. It'll send the request to the phone, all of that.
Thank you.
What's up, Chad?
What's up?
So you require like a TEE. Do you have like any device made after this period of time, or it has to be from this manufacturer? Do you have a guide for like the ideal Authenticate hardware a user would use?
Get the latest, greatest is the ideal, but part of our architecture is that we can back off as needed. So like we have a full like C++ implementation of what like the secure element interface, like the same way you'd interface with the hardware secure element, we actually have like a software version of that. So we can do like, depending on what system you're on, we're going to use the best security that we can.
So there's like a security gradient, but like you can tag memory in the pixels, but you can't do on the Samsung. So you have like workarounds for all these like missing features and.
Yeah, like right now we can't use Trust Zone on the phones because our code has not been blessed by the powers that be to run in there. Eventually it will be. But then even then, yeah, if you you have to go really old to not have Trust Zone on a phone. It's actually been in ARM's like standard die for a really long time. But if you do run on hardware that doesn't have those security features, we just back off.
Right. Are you going to try to have like desktops or any other clients be sort of like the root of trust? Like, I think Macs have similar stuff. Or,
I want my keys
phone.
in my pocket.
Phone.
That's the device-bound keys to one device. So FIDO actually does do that. You can add a FIDO key on your computer, a FIDO key on your phone, a FIDO key on your other computer, a FIDO key on your other computer. But then it gets really, the scalability problem clicks in really hard. Because now if any one of those get compromised, we're back in the same position we were, that you don't know which one, like, then you have to remediate it, you have to protect all of them, you have to keep track of all of them. It becomes pretty messy. So that's why, to quote a really smart person here, I think Andrew Carnegie tried to say this, but didn't exist in our era. He said, put all your keys in one smartphone and guard that smartphone. Or Mark Twain. It's highly disputed over who actually said it.
Right on. Thank you.
So it seems like the default way of using this is you're authenticating purely based on having your phone with you and then being in close proximity to your computer. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so what I'm wondering is there any feature or any system to account for the scenario in which an attacker is physically close to the user and maybe also their computer and has access to any signals or beacons or whatever that are being sent from the user's phone and can relay them to the computer or wherever?
So that's what when you create an action, you choose the security level. So like right now, if I were to lock my computer, you're next to me, go for it. Do you want to try?
What do you mean try?
Because it's going to pop up a biometric on my phone.
Well, but that's what I'm wondering. Do you need to use the biometric feature in order to have that security cybersecurity against physical attackers, or is there any other system in place to prevent that attack from working?
So, I mean, it does. My phone is connected to this computer, and everything is encrypted from my phone to this computer over Bluetooth. So you couldn't do anything on your computer for sure. And if you're talking about a replay attack in any RF system, that is kind of like you can't do much without really reliable distance bounding. The only way to do reliable distance bounding is with dedicated hardware. So ultra wideband does that. You can get about centimeter accuracy in ultra wideband. That's not rolled out a lot yet. Bluetooth 6.0 now supports channel sounding, which will let you get the same kind of granularity on distance bounding. Again, it's not like widely available for developers. So the answer is a hard yes. I actually spent a year of grad school just looking at like how to do secure distance bounding for that reason. Because like right now it's great. If I could guarantee that my phone has to be this close to this laptop, you know, that's a very, very good scenario. In the next month, we're gonna release a feature where we're gonna do the best that we can from the phone side, where what will happen, you only get relative signal strength indicator and kind of like other RF noise in the room, but you will be able to stand here and take measurements. Say, this is like the edge of the bubble. Your phone will take measurements, and then if you put the phone inside that bubble, it will connect into the thing, and you pull it outside that bubble, it will disconnect. We've tried this in so many different ways. Like, we keep releasing this feature and pulling this feature and releasing this feature and pulling this feature. I'd say we're extremely confident that this version of it will work the best that you can without channel sounding.
So the government still uses CAT cards, right?
Yes.
To log into computers and SCIFs.
Yes.
So how do you solve that problem if I can't have my phone in the SCIF?
That is the smartphone-like device.
Okay.
So the best thing, I mean, smart cards are fantastic. To be clear, that's the exact chip that we use in our smartphones today. The secure element is if you took your credit card, dissolved it in acid, and took that chip on and soldered it onto the motherboard of your phone, same chip, same technology, same anti-tamper, same everything. The one step up, I think, which the government kind of does already, they have these like lanyard CAC readers that you shove it in and you type your PIN into it. But they could produce something just kind of like a hybrid of a smart card and a phone that has some UI elements to it that is powered with batteries that last for long periods of time. And that's where you could get all of this niceties without the, the radios. Your recovery scheme would still be a nightmare, but in a big monolithic organization like that, it's not as big of a deal to have decentralized recovery because you have other ways to verify trust with like humans. Like, they'll make you come into the office anyway, right? Like they're not just gonna hand you a new device.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Hi, fascinating talk. I just wonder, is there a way to back up your authenticator in a way that, let's say, I don't want to trust all my friends to not come together and hack me without me being present, or that if I'm at somewhere remote or a different country, due to some reason I can't contact my friends, is there a way to have a physical backup? Have you implemented a way to, let's say, transfer the store security from this secure element on this phone to that one, so I can have a backup?
That fundamentally breaks our security model. So if the key can ever leave that device intact, you don't know if it's been stolen or not. So everything in our security model has to assume the key wholesale can never leave. Because if there's an honest way to do it, there's a dishonest way to do it.
So for example, what if you try to use some sort of user authenticated on both phones to say, okay, I trust this other phone, and then we do a TOS between them?
I agree with you, there are ways. Yeah, YubiKey can do that, and like there's some other like places where you can back up your wallets. But again, if there's an honest way to do it, like there's an attack there. And like minimizing, they call it your trusted computing base. You want to keep that as small as possible. The amount of things that you trust, the amount of people you trust, the amount of code that you trust. So if there is effectively like an export function, that's a very, very, very dangerous function. So
Okay.
we intentionally shy away from that, and it really puts once you bring humans involved, that trust is far harder to break. And if 3 of the 5 people you trust most collude against you, that might be more of a you problem than like a cryptography problem. Maybe you've misplaced your trust in those 5 people. We can change those thresholds. We just, as a first implementation, 3 out of 5 seem comfortable. We don't want to have people enrolling, 25 different people and getting involved with 25 different people to restore their phone.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome back.
Don't the 5 people not know who each other are?
Correct.
So they can't collude.
They
'Cause
do
you
not
pick
have
your
to know who each
grandma,
other are.
You pick your sister and some,
Yes, the 5 people do not know the other people on the team. They only know that they are on your team.
Yeah, I had a follow-up question to the previous person.
Yeah.
So couldn't an attacker just bring 5 new phones and then set all of those as the backup people to your phone and then take your key?
So you choose who's on your team by email, and you authenticate that, yes, I want this person to be on my team.
Mm-hmm. But I see it seemed like the issue with an export button is that an attacker could take your phone and export your keys to their device. So if someone steals your phone for 10 minutes, then couldn't they also authenticate the backup people?
I mean, there is a theoretical attack there, yes, but it's less attackable than just a wholesale export function.
Mm-hmm.
But in a Mission Impossible movie, I could see that happening.
Okay.
Because you still have to break trust zone and break all of the security that I've just discussed on how to add these backups. And the point is that your private key is never sitting on any other place other than this phone. So when it's on all their phones, it's useless, right? Because it's encrypted with an AES key with an unbreakable SSS share. So there is no other living copy of your key that isn't fractured and useless.
But if the attacker owns all 5 phones that the backup is sharded across.
Right, and that's what I said. You can start to get into crazy Hollywood scenarios for any attacker model on how to break it. This is the best we've come up with to keep the key out of the cloud and to keep your security sound.
Wait, I still don't get why. It doesn't seem like a Hollywood scenario, just a bring stack of 5 phones.
You need to authenticate to my phone to add someone.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
I think I know what he means. I think what he's trying to say is that you steal the phone for 10 minutes, and with that 10 minutes, you create a team. You could create a
Here, I'll give you an hour.
5 people.
I don't understand. You still have to authenticate locally.
But you'd have to for an export button too, right? How's it different from just having an export button?
The problem with the export button isn't the interaction with it, it's the code paths. You don't want to open those code paths. Because now we're...
Well, what he's saying is that I steal your phone.
Yes.
I have 5 phones with
Yes.
5 fake authenticated users. Using your phone, I authenticate on your phone to approve 5 authenticated users. I put the phone back where I found it. And then 2 weeks later, I take phone number 7, start a recovery process. Start a recovery process, say approve using my phones 2 through 6, and now phone 1 has been wiped and I have your credentials.
Okay. I think I've clarified the misunderstanding here. With the way we do it, there's only ever 1 copy of your key and 5 broken copies. If you have an export button, that person could, in their own good conscience, make infinite copies of their own key and compromise themselves unknowingly. Because now they could have another copy at home that they forgot they made on a device that then gets stolen and then gets compromised.
So what's the process for, say I want to pick 5 new friends? What's that process like?
You just go into your rescue mission. You would say delete friend from rescue mission. This is not live in the app yet. This will be rolled out. Right now you can only invite people. We want to just get it out there and try it first. You would say delete friend. You would authenticate. You delete that friend. Everybody gets rekeyed. That friend their share that was useless without the other shares is now literally useless because everyone has wiped their shares. You add a new friend, and everybody has that new shares. So you can modify your team at any point. And our motto internally, we call it dumb as F. We assume that everything has to survive the dumbest possible thing you could ever think of like somebody saying like, oh, I'm going to copy my key to this kiosk because that's what it says I need to do to log in to get a $20 off my Chevrolet, right? Like, we want to avoid all of those kind of scenarios, and an export button re-enables human error in flawed ways.
And you can't vouch for the custody of that key, like the chain of custody is broken.
Right.
They could blame Authenticate.
Right. Once you can export the key, you put the user in a position where they could mess up terribly. Whereas even when they put on their friends' phones, even if it's the wrong friend, you can rectify that, and even that one wrong friend can't do anything.
So a phishing attack could be like, hey, I need you to make me your friend 5 times, just because there's some buggy thing here. I need you to make these 5 things your friend. That could be a phishing attack that would work. I'm saying, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's possible. I'm just trying to understand.
If you convince me you are my 5 best friends, yeah.
Oh, Authenticate, God, they're dumb. The only way to do this is to like just say A, B, C, D, and not know your friends. And just do it. Right? So that would be their phishing attack.
Yeah. Yeah, if they could get a quorum of your friends, that would be the new phishing attack. To convince them you're in their top 5 best trusted people.
Hi. First of all, thank you for this presentation. I work in decentralized space as well, so it was very interesting to listen. My question is, so in your example, you divided the private key into 5 Shamir parts.
Mm-hmm.
And you give each of these parts to 5 friends. What happens if one of the friends loses his phone? So there are just 4 parts, and the last one is forever missed.
So you will know that happened if they recover their phone. So if they also had rescue missions and they recover their phone, all is well. Because you could send them you could send them what they lost, and their share is also, we cache it. It's cached in the cloud, but it doesn't have to be cached in the cloud. It could be cached locally on your phone too, because it's all encrypted with their public key, so there's no risk at keeping that around.
Mm-hmm. So it's something similar to each device. It has not just its private key, but like a object with his private key and all the parts from the friends.
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll know all of the teams that you're on, and you'll have a storage with all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this is one of the things we had to think through, I would say, harder than we thought we would have to, because we're like, okay, I'm going to back up my stuff with you, but then Aaron is one of your friends, but Aaron trusts me, so when I back up with you, then you're going to back up my key with Aaron, then Aaron's going to back up my key with he, then I'm going to back up Aaron keys with you, and then you're going to back up with Aaron. We're like, okay, that doesn't work, because that's just like the first time anyone does anything, we just have like a backup storm and the network goes down. Like, we've seen this play out. So that's why you're not ever actually going to back up your shares. You're only going to back up your data with your friends, and your shares are going to be reliant on that person's phone and the cache and all the other people on that team to keep those caches.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a question from the stream. Is it possible for an entity to host 2 services and correlate users between the 2 based on authentication used by Authenticate? So the 2 users have no other credentials in common.
It should not be. I mean, as far as the cryptography, no. But there's so much, like, I don't want to just give a hard no, because there's so many ways you can fingerprint computers and latencies and, like, you know, just outside of like the user agent fields, there's so many crazy tricks that marketing agencies do now to fingerprint you and like your mouse movements and all this crazy stuff. That stuff can still be used, same way you get identified on Tor. The cryptography, there is no possible way. So if I create a passkey, for example, for one website and a passkey for the other, there is absolutely no correlation between how those private keys. They're randomly generated every time. Oh, one last question. Best for last.
Wow, we'll see. I think with authentication and security and all these things, you know, I kind of think about it like, you know, the linemen in the NFL, nobody knows who they are until they mess up.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think that's the way it was with passwords and authentication for a lot of people. They don't think about it. It's out of sight, out of mind. I think you know, did a great job raising consciousness about some close calls here. But I do wonder if us transitioning to a more secure model or more decentralized model, we need, candidly, a disaster first. What do you think about that? I mean, I'm not happy to say that, but I do wonder that.
It might be true, but the DigiNotar truly was a disaster. You know, like a root CA on the internet was compromised to the point where you could man in the middle any website effectively, right? Like it was in most popular browsers. And the weird thing is that like it wasn't widely publicized. I feel like the general public definitely doesn't know that happened. If you're an Iranian and you were murdered because of it, you certainly know, right? Like that hit home pretty hard. Yeah, I don't want to like motivate people to make a disaster scenario, but yeah, we have only hit close calls and it hasn't happened yet, but it's very plausible that this could just really go sideways real fast. Like every time I see the login with Google button, I think that, I'm like, man, if someone of that scale were to get fully compromised, insider, whatever the thing may be, like, I mean, the damage you could do, and really, when you come into wartime, right, is when that stuff, I think, becomes less theoretical. So, like, cyber warfare, we've never seen it yet
it's
on a
happening.
large scale.
Well, it's happening to smaller nations, right? It hasn't targeted us. By the way, the Google, these authentication with Facebook and Google and all these things, I'm not gonna lie, you know, I'm not in this field, but I do think that constantly because we've seen so many, you know, these big corporations with centralized systems, and you know, stuff happens. There's a lot of people that work for them. You know, I mean, we all know there's also issues with espionage, where people from other countries are starting to, you know, work at the FANG companies, and they're basically moles. You know, we have this; it's a real thing.
Yes, yeah, and there's also just the privacy concern, right? Every time you click login with, that company knows exactly what you just did. Like, they know that you're logging in, and they're harvesting data. So there's also that aspect of it. Like, yeah, it's way easier than having 5,000 passwords to click login with Google, but yeah, when we architected this whole thing, I think I'll give you like two interesting findings we had of like, you know, our pure academic brains taking it to market. One was that we thought everyone would want to run the Docker container local. We're like, yeah, everyone's going to run this on-premise. Authentication is too high security. That is not true at all. Everyone across the board is like, you're the PhD, you run this. Like, put it in on your servers and you run it. I'm like, yeah, but now we're creating another single point of failure. Like, I don't like that. So that was like an eye-opener for me, and also just way more stressful to start a decentralized company where we're running all the servers as well. I thought I was going to like push that off. I forget what the other one was, because that was, but yeah, there were a couple like really interesting findings, like psychologically, because I've only hung out with hackers and nerds that I thought the rest of the public would get it, and they just don't care nor want to hear that.
All right. I think, you know, it's been a great conversation, great questions. Thank you for everyone who came. I think the next talk, Futo talk, Friday talk, we will probably have at the end of August. So I have someone in mind, but I will announce it when I've got it locked down. Chad, it was great. You did a great job. And I really appreciate you raising our consciousness. I think a lot of people are thinking about these sorts of things now. So it was a great presentation.
Awesome. Thank you.